Hello and welcome to Everyday Tarot, your daily dive into the divine wisdom of the tarot. I'm your host, Camille A. Saunders, healer, tarot enthusiast, and professional witch, and today I'm talking about Artemis. Whether you're a seasoned tarot reader or just starting to explore, this podcast offers daily insights, intuitive messages, and practical advice drawn from the cards. Each episode is designed to help you connect with your inner wisdom, find clarity in your decisions, and tap into the energy of the universe. Tune in every day, Monday through Friday, for fresh perspectives and empowering guidance from the tarot as interpreted by me. If you love the show, the best way to support it for free is by listening daily, leaving a review, and subscribing or following in your favorite podcast app. If you love the podcast and want to support it further, you can join the Everyday Tarot Patreon family. Benefits include getting an individual card pulled for you once a month live on the podcast, or if you'd like to support the podcast even further, you can get a one-time individual 5-card reading in addition to all the other benefits if you join the Witch level on the Patreon. I recently recorded an hour-long video episode for the new moon in Libra that we welcomed in on September 22nd, 2025. If you missed the live, you can check out the new moon in Libra collective tarot reading replay now to get all of the latest info. I will be speaking at the Queer Joy Summit 2025, hosted by Colette Dalton this October. The summit is a week from October 13th through the 19th, so kicking off today, completely free and online, and it's all about centering queer joy as survival, resistance, and connection. I'll be talking all about queering the tarot alongside an incredible lineup of queer artists, healers, rebels, and dreamers. Together we'll laugh, maybe cry, and remind each other that joy is not optional. It's ours right here and now. So the event is free to attend and you can sign up here. The link will be in the show notes, and I'd love for you to join me and the rest of this beautiful queer community. And if you've already signed up or you're about to go do so, you will also get the opportunity to join me live at 3 p.m. Pacific time for a mystic hangout with me and Emily Holding, another witchy presenter of the Queer Joy Summit, and I will be doing a collective tarot reading live for us all, and then Emily will kick off doing individual readings for folks. So if you want a reading and you're available, come join us at 3 p.m. today Pacific time, and hope to see you there. If you're unable to make it, we will be sending out the replay. It'll definitely have the collective tarot reading on it, and we're hoping that individuals are okay with being on the recording, but if not, we'll just have everything on there that we got consent to, obviously. So yeah, I would love for you to join me and the rest of this beautiful queer community this week. I also was recently on Kayla Moore's Connected Pleasure podcast. You can check out my episode of her podcast linked in the show notes, where we talked all about living by the body, dreaming of land, and weaving the future. Kayla is actually in the middle of a launch for their one-on-one coaching container right now. And yeah, I am an affiliate for them. I think they're amazing and do incredible work in the realm of the divine feminine. And Kayla's books are open for their launch period, which is October 6th through the 12th. So they're doing a 8-week private journey for women who feel disconnected from their sexual desire and are ready to reclaim it on their own terms. Yeah, and it's an intimate, personalized work where women can learn practices to awaken desire, create safety in their bodies, and integrate pleasure into daily life. So the link for Kayla's offer will be in the show notes at connectedpleasurecoaching.com. If you want to work more with me directly and you don't live local to me, I will be kicking off my Tarot for Transformation live course starting in January 2026. I've sort of pivoted my dreams for this offer, and instead of doing 12 weeks of sort of an intensive, we're gonna spread it out, we're gonna slow down, and we're gonna go 1 card per month. So kicking off in January 2026, I'll be deep diving the first 12 of the major arcana cards all together as we embody archetypes and learn how to transform ourselves through the tarot. I'll be creating workbooks that have journaling questions, as well as information about the card and each archetype. I will most likely be dressing up as each archetype as well for our live calls, which I am hoping are probably going to be like 2 or 3 hours, have it be like a really ritual, deep space. I am still working on the vision for it, but I'm so excited to get to kind of be deep diving into these archetypes, one a month. And if it's something that you all like, I mean, I'm definitely going to commit to the year of doing the first 12 cards. And after that, of course, there are another 10 cards. So perhaps I will be doing this for the next like 2 years. So I will have the option for folks to sign up for the whole year to get the calls, and if they're unable to make it live, the recordings, but I'll also have it available for folks to sign up for one-off events. So if there's a particular card that you really like are feeling called to, like I'll be laying that all out, and I'll have them all planned for all of 2026 because we'll just be going for the first 12 cards. So easy enough. We'll have our order figured out. So I'll have the link in the show notes for you to sign up to start getting more info about this course and what it's going to look like and everything I'm excited for, and yeah, how we're going to be looking to transform, which is like by embodying archetypes and doing like self-growth and self-work, doing journaling, like I said, and also doing a bit of like glamour magic around, right? Like literally embodying, right? Dressing up, at least for me, for these archetypes as I think about how we approach different things in life in the spirit of the cards. So I'm very excited for that. If you don't already know, I am a sex and relationships therapist and coach, seeing individual and relational clients virtually all over from my home office. I love working with queer, poly, and witchy clients. So if you'd like to work with someone that doesn't judge you, is witchy just like you, and helps you learn how to deal with anxiety, chronic pain or illness, communication issues, self-advocacy, and sex, head to my website and book a free consult now to start your journey. If you have heard about my Crafting Your Own Tarot Cards event and you're curious, but maybe you don't feel super artistic, maybe you don't feel like you're creative or have the skills for that, well, no worries. I will walk you all through the process, and part of my process is doing collage. So no art skills necessary is what I'm going to say. I really like doing collage because you can really tap into it. You can decide if you're going based off of the images you find and creating cards based off of that, or if you go into it with a certain intention to make a specific tarot card that you know and love perhaps, and then looking for specific images there. So if that sounds fun to you, if maybe as we are going into these darker, perhaps drearier months that are a little bit better for indoor activities, at least where I live, you can go ahead, you can get my full workshop, which has an hour-long recording where I go through my step-by-step method in like a nice PowerPoint with examples of the cards I've created. I chat about, like I said, my methodology. I have some journaling questions in there to sort of pull ideas out of you. And then if all else fails, you have a PDF to walk you all through all of that process too. And that is, you can grab that for $33. So you can click the link in the show notes to purchase that now. If you're local to me, of course, when I hold in-person tarot card crafting events, like please come. It's super fun because I have all the supplies then and you just get to show up. But if you don't live local to me, I still want to bring this activity to you all because I think it's so fun and a whole other way to get to know the cards. And so yeah, highly recommend grabbing that workshop if you're interested. So, and if you just want more of me, more tarot, you can get a free PDF with my 2025 5-card tarot spread that I created just for you, my lovely listeners, at the beginning of this year. And you can get that by joining my newsletter list. My weekly newsletter always has the most up-to-date info on upcoming events, presentations, musings, and info and photos of my day-to-day life all in one place. So if you love everything I do and you want more, and you want to see perhaps more of the personal side of things, or you want to see my farming, garden life, what I'm up to, or maybe you just want one place, right, to go weekly that lists everything that I'm kind of working on, that's a great way to do that. And like I said, if you're local and you want to meet me in person, you can come to my Let's Talk Tarot meetup group events, where I have social events and also the tarot card crafting events. So when we do social ones, we chat, you can meet other tarot enthusiasts, bring your favorite decks, and we play with tarot and oracle decks together. Or you can you can celebrate the full moon with me, because I'm holding full moon women's circles for the rest of 2025. You can join my colleague Izzy and I under the glow of the full moon for an evening of connection, reflection, and ritual. We meet at Thresholds Collective in Tacoma the first Sunday of the month to welcome in the full moon together. So we just did one on October 5th, had a lovely time celebrating the harvest moon. And our upcoming ones will be November 2nd and December 7th. And tickets are already live for those. So if you're interested in coming, go ahead, purchase those now, get it on your calendar. So you got it all in there and planned, and I would love, love, love to see you there. And you can find the links for any of these offers in the show notes or on my website, CamilleASaunders.com/everydaytarot, in addition to the images of the cards I pull on each episode. All right, so let's get into it. We are here in season 16, where I'm talking all about queer deities. If you haven't listened to my other seasons yet, you can check those out. I've done a variety of topics. I've talked tarot basics, tarot and pop culture, did a whole season on common tarot spreads if you're ever looking for more spreads. I've talked tarot and plant allies, tarot and animals, and I recently just wrapped up my season on tarot and crystals. So go ahead and check those out. Pick which topics are interesting to you. I've also gone through every single card in these 78 cards of a traditional tarot deck in some of my episodes, because I am at over 200 episodes now. So if you're ever looking for more info about a certain card, that's a great place to go. And if scrolling on your podcast app does not seem appealing to you, you can go to my website, CamilleASaunders.com/everydaytarot, and click on, you can search at the top for the name of the card and you'll figure out which episode it is. So that might be an easier way to do it if you're looking for a particular one. But anyway, let's get back into our season here, where we're talking all about queer deities. And today I'm talking about Artemis. So we'll get into the mythology, queerness, and then kind of the tarot affiliation that I see between Artemis and the tarot cards. And then I will go ahead and pull a card and we'll see what Artemis has to share with us today. So first, I will be referencing the Women's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets by Barbara G. Walker. This is a great tome. It's over 1,000 pages, but it's a really nice, again, a witchy encyclopedia. I have another one that's Witches and Witchcraft 2nd edition encyclopedia, which has maybe more generically witchcraft things, and then some gods and goddesses, but this one kind of has a lot of everything. So let's get into Artemis, and then I'll be referencing some articles online as well as we talk more about the queerness. So Artemis is an Amazonian moon goddess worshipped at Ephesus under the Latin name of Diana or goddess Anna. Like the Hindu goddess Saranyu, who gave birth to all animals, she was called Mother of Creatures. Her image at Ephesus had a whole torso covered with breasts to show that she nurtured all living things, yet she was also the huntress, killer of the very creatures that she brought forth. In Sparta, her name was given as Artemis, cutter or butcher. Artemis's myths extend back to Neolithic sacrificial customs. At Taurus, her holy women, under their high priestess Iphigenia, sacrificed all men who landed on their shores, nailing the head of each victim to a cross. At Hierapolis, the goddess's victims were hung on artificial trees in her temple. In Attica, Artemis was ritually perpetuated with drops of blood drawn from a man's neck by a sword, a symbolic remnant of former beheadings, and human victims were later replaced by bulls, hence the goddess's title Tauropolis or bull slayer. Her huntress aspect was another form of the destroying crone or waning moon. Like Hecate, who led the nocturnal hunt, her priestesses wore the masks of hunting dogs. Alani, or hunting dogs, was the Greek name for Scythians who revered Artemis. The mythological hunting dogs who tore the horned god Actaeon to pieces were really Artemis's sacred bitches. Wow. What a title. Classic mythographers pretended that Actaeon committed the sin of seeing the chaste virgin goddess in her bath, and she condemned him out of offended modesty. Actually, the bath, the nakedness, and the tearing to pieces of the sacred king were all part of the drama. In barbarian Germany, the goddess's ritual bath could be witnessed only by men doomed to die, so Actaeon's deer skin and antlers marked him as the pre-Hellenic stag king, reigning over the sacred hunt for half a great year before he was torn to pieces and replaced by his Tanist, or the co-king. In the 1st century AD, Artemis's priestesses still pursued and killed a man dressed as a stag on the goddess's mountain. Her groves became the deer gardens, or in German, Tiergarten, and Swedish Djurgarden, once the scene of venison feasts. One of Artemis's most popular animal incarnations was the great she-bear, or Ursa Major, ruler of the stars and protectress of the axis mundi, or the pole of the world, marked in heaven by the pole star at the center of the small circle described by the constellation Ursa Major. Helvetian tribes in the neighborhood of Bern worshipped her as the she-bear, which is still the heraldic symbol of Bern. The city's very name means she-bear. Sometimes the Helvetians called her Artio, or shortened to Art by Celtic peoples, who coupled her with the bear king Arthur. As Artio's lord of the hunt, the medieval god of witches came to be known as Robin, son of Art. According to the Irish, Art meant god, but its earlier connotation was goddess, specifically the bear goddess. She was also canonized as a Christian saint Ursula, derived from the Saxon name of Ursel, the she-bear. And Ursa Major, if you don't know, also known as the Great Bear, is colloquially called the Big Dipper. So a circumpolar constellation with 7 bright stars, including the North Pole pointers. For a brief time, the constellation was renamed Charles Wain after the chariot of Charlemagne. That's very interesting. There was a rather sophisticated astronomical reason for worshipping the heavenly she-bear who followed her track around the pole star year by year. It was probably discovered first in the Far East. The months and seasons are determined by the revolution of Ursa Major. The tail of the constellation pointing to the east as nightfall announces the arrival of spring, pointing to the south, the arrival of summer, pointing to the west, the arrival of autumn, which is what I've seen right now, and pointing to the north, the arrival of winter. The Great Bear occupies a prominent position in the Taoist heavens as the aerial throne of the supreme deity. The deity in Taoist tradition is the Queen of Heaven, Holy Mother Ma Tzu Po, with characteristics similar to those of Artemis. She protects seafarers and governs the weather. She is called a virgin and matron of the measure. She is a mother of mercy who has been compared to the Virgin Mary and to the Buddhist goddess Marichi. The axis mundi was often associated with male gods, as either a great serpent or a world tree, more or less recognized as a phallic symbol. Similarly, the little bear within the circle of the great bear was pictured by the Greeks as Arcas, her son, or Callisto. Among the oldest traditions may be found hints that this world-supporting tree or pole was female. Even the Yggdrasil, the world tree of the Vikings, it showed many parallels with birth-giving, fruit or milk-producing mother trees of the Near East under its old name of Motvidr or Mutvidr mother tree. Sometimes it was mead tree, like the milk-giving tree of the Finno-Ugric peoples, a symbol which may go back ultimately to Mesopotamia and be of great antiquity. It was said that the tree is the source of unborn souls, which would give birth to the new primal woman, life or leaf in the new universe after the present cycle came to an end. Its fruit could be given to women in childbirth that what is within may pass out. The spring at the tree's root was a fountain of wisdom, or the life-giving fluid which may be likened to the wise blood of the mother. The much mythologized feminine life source likened to the kula nectar in the uterine spring of Kundalini, as if the maternal tree upholding the universe were the mother's spine with its many chakras. And many-breasted Artemis was always a patroness of nurture, fertility, and birth. Male gods turned against these attributes in opposing the cult of the goddess. Her own twin brother and sometimes consort, Apollo, made birth illegal on his sacred isle of Delos. Pregnant women had to be removed from the island lest they offend the god by giving birth there. Christians continued to vilify Artemis. Tatian said Artemis is a poisoner. Apollo performs cures. The Gospels demanded destruction of Artemis's Ephesian temple in Acts 19:27, and St. John Chrysostom preached against this temple in 406 AD. Soon afterward, it was looted and burned. The Patriarch of Constantinople praised Chrysostom's zeal. In Ephesus, he stripped the treasury of Artemis. In Phrygia, he left without sons her whom they called the mother of the gods. And again, she is also known as Diana in the Roman tradition. I'm just going to see if Diana has any additional info here. But I'll probably just leave it there. So, okay, so that is Artemis on pride.com, talking about queer gods. They affirm, right, Artemis was the twin sister to Apollo. The goddess was, by differing accounts, sometimes an asexual virgin or a lesbian with many nymph lovers, including Serene, Atalanta, and Antisclea, as well as the moon goddess Dictyna. By some accounts, she was Callisto's lover before the nymph was raped by Zeus. And researcher Johanna Haptia Blia writes that lesbian and gay devotees worshipped her as Artemis or Thea, and that lesbian port Pamphylia referred to the goddess and him as Artemis Pergaea. Again, when we think of Artemis as a queer girl goddess, on Autostraddle they say Artemis is the queer girl goddess BFF of your dreams. This is an article written in 2017. So again, Artemis, also known as Diana to the Romans, one of the queerest figures mythology has ever produced. She is the Greek goddess of the hunt, animals, unmarried girls, and midwifery. The mythology has her securing a promise of perpetual virginity from her father and immediately skipping off into the mountain forest with a group of like-minded nymphs. Together, she and her women hiked, swam, lived off the land, and viciously murdered any man who walked in on them naked. There's some debate about what flavor of queer she actually is. There's a great meme, they keep seeing on Tumblr, about how Artemis's sworn virginity makes her an arrow ace. Now, like all bisexuals, they say my great weakness is puns, which is why it makes me sad that all of the virgin goddesses, and indeed there are many, Artemis is almost certainly the only one for whom that identity label doesn't fit. In ancient Greek, the word virgin also means unmarried girl. There's a school of thought out there that all of the virgin goddesses were, originally at least, just unmarried ones, and that they could have had as much sex as they liked with whomever they wanted. After all, it's very clear that when Artemis and her sistren ask for perpetual virginity, it's the state of marriage rather than men themselves that's undesirable. In fact, it says men are totally irrelevant. For Artemis's marriage would have meant a loss of freedom, not just by subjecting her to her husband's authority, but by requiring a completely different lifestyle with different constraints and responsibilities from her. There's a reason she's the goddess of unmarried girls, while little mortal girls who wouldn't have had anything like her freedom, Artemis's virginity allows her to escape the domestic responsibilities that marked out adult womanhood. It says, sadly, though, this argument is rooted in the idea that goddesses arose from a goddess-centric matriarchy that predated and was then overthrown by patriarchy. There's some archaeological evidence for this, but not a lot. And it says the Minoans, so the ancient people of Crete, may have been matriarchal, but a lot of Greece was not. It says there's fairly compelling evidence that the virgin goddess had no interest in men, even if they wanted to, in the existence and treatment of the goddess Demeter. Demeter, they also talked about, remained unmarried. Yeah, and the virgin label is very interesting, and it's almost always different than how we see it today. But yeah, often a virgin goddess meant unmarried, or sort of like a sovereign, like unburdened. I know in the Goddess of Love tarot deck by Gabriella Herstick and illustrated by Julia Popescu. Now I'm trying to remember which card it is, but they rename one of the cards to the sovereign, and now I'm gonna have to look it up. Maybe it's the Empress? No. The Emperor. Yeah, because sovereign also meant this like that is sort of what the virgin meant, sexually independent in that way. So when we speak of the word virgin in the ancient sense, we do not mean not having sex in the sort of puritanical purity culture aspect that it's often spoken of today, at least in the US. And yeah, it's kind of interesting because, right, it's like we see Artemis with nymphs, and it's hard to know if we're supposed to read Artemis as like attracted to women or like exactly, and right, it could have varied from culture to culture, right? Again, Artemis was also known as Diana, and I think Artemis actually has more of the like queerness, like labels than Diana usually does, which is interesting since like in a lot of ways it may have just been like the same goddess repurposed. And in Athens and Rome, like women having sex with other women was considered like shameful or disgusting, perhaps because it involved women in roles that generally men would be in. We also know that like men having sex with men was also seen differently perhaps than it is today. Yeah, but anyway, Artemis still remains to be this sort of like symbol for like unmarried people and not wanting to be tied into this sort of like heterosexual idea of marriage. And we do know that there is like that she does have physical intimacy with one of her nymphs, Callisto, because of it's in like a story about Zeus, that yeah, so it's often talked about that Zeus had lovers, but a lot of the time what they mean by the term lovers is that like rape victims. And let's see here, they have like a quote here about Callisto. Oh, but this is about Diana. Interesting. It says, quickly he took on the face and dress of Diana and said, "O girl who follows me, where in my domains have you been hunting?" The virgin girl got up from the turf, replying, "Greetings, goddess greater than Jupiter. I say it even though he himself hears it." He did hear and laughed, happy to be judged greater than himself, and give her kisses unrestrainedly and not those that virgins give. So Zeus there, like as Jupiter, decides he wants to have sex with his daughter's girlfriend and shapeshifts so that he looks like his daughter, and then he only changes back after Callisto has like gotten close enough that she can't like get away from him. And so this is sort of like how we know that Callisto and Artemis were together, or perhaps in this way. And like the myth only works if Callisto and Artemis normally kiss each other in distinctly non-platonic ways, and there's an expectation, right, for romantic touch and closeness, because Zeus kind of like exploits that by dressing or whatever it is, shape-shifting, not really dressing, shape-shifting, to look this way. And the gods, many gods are always into shape-shifting and acting like other gods, right? I talked about Loki last episode. Loki is also very much known as the shapeshifter and becomes this sort of like trickster aspect in that way. So, right, because of this myth, we know Artemis is at least attracted to women in the nymphs. and that it doesn't violate her oath of virginity, that this would happen. Perhaps Artemis was bisexual, like we do hear about other times, like that she had feelings for Orion or Hippolytus, but it's not as like strong in the mythology as like her interest in women. And yeah, we really just see, again, some of the romance come from other mythology where Apollo is jealous of Artemis's like love with other people. And that's kind of how we find this out, which I'm like, oh, the mythology created by men where women are only used as objects and rape victims in mythology or like in the storyline, and that we're always trying to like infer things because they were not specifically spoken about, because they are rarely the center of the mythology. So again, Artemis, like whether or not she feels or acts on sexual desire, is very clearly understood as like a lover of women. She desires them romantically, seeks out life partners to start like different things with them, and she is this very like like women prioritizing other women and the environment and their choice of community over ideas like the nuclear family or like amassing a lot of wealth, right? Like she was very happy to be in the woods with a lot of other women, happily living there and like taking out any men that came to bother them. So that is where a lot of our ideas about Artemis's queerness came from. And then like with other gender stereotypes, like she takes up quote unquote like manly or masculine pursuits like the hunt, and like she prefers the company of her hunting dogs and nymphs, and she like perhaps is pansexual and like probably lesbian at the very least, and that's kind of like what we have become to understand there. And I pulled that some of this phrasing from floreaware.ca, an article about celebrating queer gods and goddesses for Pride Month. That was from 2024. Yeah, and even at the time, like ancient gay and lesbian Greeks worshipped her as Artemis or Thea, a symbol of like the queer community in that way. So like people saw her that way as well, or saw them that way. And that I pulled from Queer Representation in Greek Mythology PDF that was created on ignea.org. All right, so let's get into tarot affiliations now that I've talked all about Artemis. So when I think about Artemis, I mean, I definitely think about the moon, and again, kind of like same with Diana because of the, like she is the Greek goddess of the moon, like this, right? Like she has this intuitive, mysterious, subconscious aspect, trusting instinct, navigating the unknown, bringing things to light, and Artemis's ability to move confidently in like the darkness or in the sort of like outside the box, outside of the norm ideas. I would say also like perhaps the archetype of the High Priestess, because they do have still this like connection with women and divine femininity and inner wisdom and following intuition. Like we have this like serene yet authoritative nature that comes along with the priestess, and also I would say with Artemis. And the High Priestess is about looking inward for answers rather than necessarily looking outside. And I would say Artemis like definitely falls into that category of being like, I have my community, I have my things I'm okay with, and like I do not need the approval of other people in that way. I thought this was really interesting. I was looking up some queer affiliations here, and someone said the hanged man in the reverse because they associate Artemis with like transformation, breaking free from outdated perspectives, guided by instincts. And I thought that was super interesting because I guess when I've been doing these like associations, I haven't thought so much about like, what about if it was in reverse, right? Like, and I would say, right, just like a lot of things, like Artemis kind of like turns things on their head. Of course, the hanged man is already upside down. So it's interesting to think of that like Artemis might be, right, like turning the upside down person back upright because they're sort of like on the other side of this transformation, or like, again, kind of not really caring what other people were concerned about or thought about them and being like, yeah, I'm good. Like, I have my life. Like, I don't need whatever you all are doing over here. Artemis was like fiercely independent, courageous, right? Again, like really was like in tune with other creatures and with like being on the hunt in the woods. And I think like that could be associated with the strength card, right? Taming inner fears. That's often linked to the strength card because again, the strength card is more about not physical strength, but inner strength. And right, this is also embodying like her true power, which is this like gentle resolve and self-control rather than like aggression or kind of like outward warfare. Right, we have other gods and goddesses for that part. What else? I think the other one that I sort of like saw and I could see is that Artemis could be connected to the whole suit of swords because of that representation of like truth and intellect and communication, right? If we think again of like a huntress or someone on the hunt, right? You have to have that like perfect aim, that like untamed spirit, because when you're hunting, like you spend time out in the woods, like just kind of following the animals and going with their like time and their like routines, and you have to kind of like disassociate yourself from like perhaps like a lot of normal human clock times, or right, like you have to be very mentally clear and decisive, right? And all of those go along with swords and kind of that precision, right? And I bet Artemis in a lot of ways, like again, kind of like in interacting with other like gods or creatures, is this kind of like more blunt like communicator, right? Again, they kind of don't really care what people think about them, and so they're like, yeah, like I don't care, I'm gonna be like very truthful and direct with my communication because like my aim is very true, in the same way that like hunting, your aim has to be very true. Again, if you really care about the animals that you're hunting, like you want to put them out of their misery quickly. You don't want the animal to like go through a lot of suffering, because like hopefully no one wants that, but also because like it literally changes like the constitution of the meat or whatever it is that you are going to be eating, because fear and trauma changes our bodies. We know that to be true, and like the same is true when you're killing animals, is that you want that to be like a very precise, defined, decisive decision, and not to be like willy-nilly about it, or not to like injure the animal but not actually kill them and then like have them suffering for a long time. So that was an interesting route to go down, but I think that's important too, because again, when we think of like the hunt, like it can be seen as this like extremely masculine activity, even with like when we talk about hunter-gatherer societies, like there's the misnomer that like women were gathering and men were hunting, and like perhaps part of that are true, but honestly, hunter-gatherer societies were more foragers, in the same way that people might identify as like a forager now. Gathering was like 90% of what you ate. You rarely in that time period had meat, and when you did, right, you had to do a lot of work to preserve it and spread it out and enjoy it before it went bad, and cook it and things like that, smoke it and other things. But like foraging and the gathering of things was a lot more aligned with like making smaller impact on the land and moving a lot, doing extensive things. So where was I going with this? I guess I'm just saying, right, we have this sort of like false idea that the hunt is, again, like a masculine activity, but I think in the same way that Artemis sort of like subverts this idea, it's like she's the Greek goddess of the hunt and the moon, protector of the young, embodiment of independence and courage, and nurturing the force of the wilderness, right? Like she was on the hunt because she loved to be in the woods, right? Like there's this part of it of like, again, being at the crossroads, illuminating the path with like very specific aim and guiding us through the wildness of our lives with that like steadfast resolve and compassion. And so that also is very much aligned with Artemis, which I love here. Yeah, and that idea of releasing old perspectives that comes with the Hanged Man reverse of, right, we are welcoming in growth and change and things to adapt. We don't have to stick with just what other people are doing or like the boxes that they're trying to put us in. So, we're getting long here. So I need to go ahead and pull a card. I think I'm going to pull a card from the Goddess of Love Tarot since I talked about it earlier. And we shall see what we get. So what message does Artemis have for us today? Goddess of the hunt, of the moon. Queer, lesbian, idol. Being a true witch of the woods. Being out there in the wilderness. Okay. I got the Wheel of Fortune card. Let's see here. So this is the number 10. The goddess on this card is Sheila na Gig, which is a Celtic goddess. So the Wheel of Fortune is an omen of divine transformation, as we talked about with Artemis. The Jovian power of this card is a blessing from the universe that comes in moments of alignment, when the inner and outer realms hang in harmony. When the Wheel of Fortune appears, it is a time of cosmic surrender, when you recognize the work you've done to be where you are. So the corresponding deity for this card in this deck is the ancient Celtic goddess Sheila na Gig, who is seen spreading her vulva in stone reliefs around Ireland, Britain, and other parts of Europe. She reflects the fecundity of the Wheel of Fortune, the never-ending journey of death and rebirth, also perfect for Artemis. Energy neither created nor destroyed births something, whether a magical child or a real child, through pleasure and presence. Remember, though, that although you are not as in control as you may think, you are more supported than you realize. The Wheel of Fortune is the goddess's ability to lead you back to the path of wholeness. Whatever you are moving through has something to teach you. So we are here to trust. So the affirmation associated with this card is, I am divinely guided by the power of love and lust. And the journal question is, where do I feel guided by love and by the goddess? How can I align myself with this force? Well, thank you for that, Artemis. I think that's perfect. It's also very interesting. The planetary correspondence is Jupiter, which, as we talked about earlier, is associated with Zeus, which has that interesting or horrible mythological tie-in here, as sort of dressing or shape-shifting into Diana or Artemis, to kind of like utilize their life. So thank you, Artemis, for your message today. Thank you all for listening and joining me on this episode of Everyday Tarot. If you want to join me on the journey of using the tarot for transformation, click on the link in the show notes to indicate your interest, and I'll send you more info. We will be working together for 12 months of calls and journaling to see what happens when we want to really transform our lives through the tarot. Links for the tarot decks I talk about will always be in the show notes and on my website if you'd like to look at them or purchase them. And thanks for joining me today on Everyday Tarot. Just as a reminder, the podcast comes out daily, Monday through Friday, for all of 2025. You can email me, me@CamilleASaunders.com with your thoughts, questions, and more. All right, see you soon. Bye-bye.